would you mind doing me the favor, Lee, of just like looking through there and seeing if I write on the board, will we still be in the frame, or does it widen out, or?
Yeah, it looks like it covers the blackboard and both of you really nice.
Fantastic. So, welcome folks. My name is David Cobb. I have the honor of serving on the national leadership team of Move to Amend. The co-presenter, co-facilitator of this session is Dan Marks, who is the founder of ArticleV.org. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to start off with some framing, big picture stuff, talk a little bit about Move to Amend. I really don't think I'll go longer than 15, 20 minutes. I'll turn it over to Dan. He's going to go about 15, 20 minutes as well. Then we're going to open it up for just discussion about that. I want to be very clear that neither he nor I think that there is any need to make a decision. Like, this group is not going to make any decision. In the spirit of meeting guidelines, this is the quintessential expect unfinished business, right? So everybody can just relax. We're like, if folks want to share your thoughts about, etc., one way or the other, we'll definitely hear it. And that's what segues me in to the idea of amending the United States Constitution. Let's be clear that there are two ways to structurally amend the U.S. Constitution. Can somebody tell me the most commonly known way, or the way that we're normally used to using it? How do you propose it?
Congress.
Right, and
Two-thirds.
two-thirds of Congress.
Actually, 2/3 of each house.
Exactly, each house. That's just to propose it. Right? A heavy political lift. Then the second way to amend the Constitution, which is actually, and by the way, this is also in Article 5 too, both of the ways. But the second way is not to go through Congress.
Two-thirds of the states.
Two-thirds of the states, how?
Demand a convention.
Two-thirds of the states demand a constitutional convention. So let's be clear about that first and
They'll
foremost.
pass it through their legislatures,
The demand actually is going to take two-thirds of the states through their legislature to demand a convention, right? So it's a convention through the state legislature. And again, that's just to propose it. The ratification, just to make the math easier, the ratification for both is the same. 3/4 of the states ratify. So at the end of the day, let's just acknowledge that amending the Constitution is probably the single most difficult thing politically that one can do in this country. And that's because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Which is to say, if any of us actually ever want to get serious about anything that we're doing, whether it's an issue like health care or ending the war or the poverty movement or so forth, at the end of the day, if you're really serious, you have to end up in the Constitution. Because now I'll just speak for myself and Move to Amend, and let's just be clear that the United States of America is currently a racist, sexist, and class-oppressive society, and the social, political, and economic institutions of this country are destroying the planet that we live in. So we're pretty clear from our perspective that we want to make transformational change. There's kind of that, we're not secret about that, right? I mean, that's like pretty clear and pretty obvious about where we're coming from. So to us, this idea of amending the Constitution, that's not actually scary to us. You know, like to us, what's scary is if we don't actually amend the Constitution. What's scary to us if we don't actually do whatever it takes to actually make those transformations. And two things that I want to say very quickly. One is, first, pop quiz. Y'all tell me, the Move to Amend demand, what is our demand to amend the Constitution? What do we want to say? Exactly. Corporations don't have constitutional rights, and the shorthand for that is corporations aren't people. This is important. Let me just use as an educational moment. Corporations aren't people is nothing but a meme. It's a way to actually capture something that's deeper, which is that corporations, no artificial entity has inherent unalienable constitutional rights. But see, the thing is, I've been working on this for about 15 years, like a demand that only living, breathing entities have inherent and inalienable constitutional rights and artificial entities don't is not a cool bumper sticker. So it's good that like corporations are not people, money is not speech. That's kind of got a ring to it. I like that, right? But again, that's not actually legally binding. So the language of the amendment we think is critically important. Now, the second thing I want to just sort of point out about that is that, frankly, for myself, I don't think that even amending the United States Constitution with the We the People 28th Amendment is enough. So for all those people who think we go far, I say to them, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? Because this movement is about taking power, right? This movement is about actually putting, for the first time in the history of the United States of America, we the people collectively actually in charge of this joint. We built it, we're going to run it, right? So this is just a first step to us. But I want to get back to this notion, because it's really important to me, that we really understand. You ratify with 3/4 of the states. 2/3 of Congress, 2/3 of the states calling for a constitutional convention. That is a Y in the road, right? Like as you're moving down the amendment trail, whether it's one amendment, whether it's a whole new constitution, whether it's a suite of amendments, there is at some point where you will have to choose one or the other, right? But let's also be clear, that Y in the road, you don't get to it until you walk a long way. Point I'm making is, we are so far, in our opinion, we are so far away from building the political power, the political consensus, the general sentiment around restructuring society, even amending the Constitution at this point, that from move to amend's position, that this is a worthy conversation. It's important to think about. But we're not taking a position one way or the other, which is to say this. Move to amend does not formally support, nor do we formally oppose a constitutional convention. We do think that the way to build a movement, however, is to, at the very least, give Congress an opportunity to give us a remedy. And that comes out of whether it's Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi or any other actually movement person. If you actually read any of the theory, it shows you have to show people that the remedies that they've been taught don't work. Right? And the reality is that most folks have not even begun to engage the amendment conversation in any way, shape, or form. So we think that it's early to actually be saying one way or the other. We just think that's a mistake. Folks can take a position on that, and honestly, I know that there are people within Move to Amend that have an opinion about one or the other, right? And that's totally okay, but right now we're just walking that road together, so we don't want to start dividing into camps yet. Because right now, I want to ask, if you self-identify and consider yourself a Move to Amend organizer, raise your hand, so I just want to get a sense. All right, put your hands down for a moment. Now, this is just a straw poll, just like, again, we're not making any decisions, but just out of curiosity. I'm going to ask 3 questions. You can only raise your hands once, and only those who raised your hands the first time, if you consider yourself a Move to Amend organizer. Do you think definitely we should be pursuing this one? And again, you have to choose now. Like, imagine you're at that line. Definitely you have to do this one. Or the third one is, let's not even, like, either way, we don't care. Or, see what I'm getting at? Just a sense of this room, in this moment, at this democracy convention. If you're already saying, for any number of reasons, and we'll get that to the discussion, really we need to stay in Congress so we can control it. If you're in that camp, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got 6 hands. If you're in the camp that, you know what, Constitutional Convention, put it all on the table, let's go, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you're in the, you know what, Y in the road, let's not even go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? See how those numbers break? And you, by the way, are let's call you a particularized group or a particularized unit. In fact, look to your left and look to your right. Really, just or look around behind. Look around. You're all freaks.
You're not appointed.
Yeah, you're all freaks, Gary. And I mean that for real. It is an honorific title because the fact that you actually actually think that we can actually make the systemic change that we're talking about, you're not normal. Right? And neither was Rosa Parks, or Elizabeth Cady Stanton, or Alice Paul, or anybody else who actually did anything that got to the heart of systemic transformational change, right? So, like, yeah, the fact that we in this group already have cut the way we have, like, with such differences, let's not let ourselves get pulled away from it. So I will continue to facilitate a dialogue and discussion on all of this. What I'm most interested in doing is to continue to build a democracy movement in this country. What I'm most interested in doing, and I do believe that Move to Men has captured something that very few groups have done. We did not even exist before 2010, so we had no infrastructure, we had no staff, we had no celebrity, we had no nothing. Today we just rolled over 303,000 people. Right? We have 160 local affiliates, people who have their shoulder to the wheel. No paid, well, I'm sorry, Caitlin is an independent contractor. And I can't call her paid staff because if I did, then that might actually mean that she was an employee, which means we're probably violating minimum wage laws. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So as an independent contractor, we've got one, right? What we've done it is with you. And I mean, we collectively are doing this together because we are really patriots. And I mean that in a very sincere way. So let's figure out ways to continue to have this and other conversations. Let's continue to build the democracy movement. And let's continue to hear from folks like Dan, who has sort of made a decision about which one. And so let's hear from him and learn from him and continue to be engaged in the political struggle together. Dan Marks, Article 5.